So there was this experiment done with rats, and it's a gruesome experiment. A lot of rats died, but it does teach a lot about human condition and our ability to overcome challenges and handle stressful situations purely based on our mental beliefs and our mental thoughts. It's called the Richter experiment, and it was done in the 1950s by a professor by the name of Richter. And back then in the 1950s, I think, killing rats for an experiment wasn't seen as much of a bad thing as it is today. But regardless of the ethics behind the experiment, there were some lessons to be taken out of this. Now, what Richter did was he took a combination of domesticated rats and wild rats that you could find in the wild, and he put them in tubs of water or tubes of water and timed how quickly they drown. Now, that's the gruesome bit and the bit that, shouldn't be looked on as a good thing today. But he did experiments and tweaked what he did to these rats to find out different things, what variables would change how long they could survive, swimming in the water. The first control test he did looked like this. He took domesticated rats, wild rats, put them in water, timed how quickly do they drown and give up and eventually die. And what he found was, although the wild rats were better equipped, they had a better physique, they were used to swimming in waters in the wild, they were physically more capable of surviving longer, but the wild rats ended up dying quicker than the domesticated rats. And the hypothesis or the theory behind it is that because the wild rats were stressed going into the water, they were in distress, they were being handled by human in an environment they weren't used to, whereas the domesticated rats going into the water, they're used to being held by humans, they went into the water more relatively relaxed and less stressed. That stress factor alone caused the wild rats, which were physically more capable to swim in water, to die quicker than the domesticated rats. That was a control test, and it's the first lesson to pick out of this, and then he started tweaking things around. The first lesson is that distress, now there are two kinds of stress. There's eustress, the good kind that you feel when you're doing a really heavy workout or you're doing a really enjoyable challenge. That's called eustress. It's stressing your mind, but in a good way. But the one we're talking about here is distress, which is the other type of stress, which is, putting us, whether it's because you're in an unfamiliar environment, whether it's because you got external pressure, whether it's because you got internal pressure, whether it's because there's something external to you causing you distress, whatever the case may be, if you are stressed, you will not be able to perform at your peak. It will not allow you to access as much creativity, access as much performance, access as much achievement as if you enter any situation with not so much stress. Okay, that's the first lesson. Now, what did Richter do after that? Well, what he did was he did a slight variable. He would put them in the water and watch them until they're just about to give up and drown, and then he would lift the rats out of the water and let them rest. And they survived that first dunk. Now, the first time he did the control experiment, I don't remember exactly how much, you'll have to check online and find out, but I think it was about 15 minutes on average. So whether you're domesticated or wild rat, you lasted about 10-15 minutes when you weren't rescued out of the water. When he did rescue them out of the water just before drowning, and then he put the same rats back into the water after a bit of rest, he found that the rats kept swimming for hours and sometimes days. The highest, I think, from memory was about 58 hours. So going from 15 minutes and then drowning to 58 hours and then drowning. Now, what was the difference? Well, the theory is that by saving and rescuing these rats just on the brink of death, it gave the rats hope that as long as they kept swimming, eventually help would arrive. Eventually they would be rescued. Eventually they would be safe. And so they're able to unlock this extra reserve of energy and power that they couldn't unlock before being rescued. From only surviving minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, to swimming continuously up to days without rest. The longest being, I think, 58 hours, as I said before. And so this second lesson relates to hope, actually. The hope and the belief that there is a payoff, that there is redemption or a reward or something that comes out of your hard work will allow you to actually keep pushing forward. Now, isn't that wonderful? It has a lot of tie-ins to what we do day to day in business, in life, in our personal lives, in our work life, etc., right? Just the simple belief that the things you are doing right now, as long as you persist at it and you do it long enough, there's a payoff at the end, allows you to keep going for longer. Now, in that Richter experiment, they still ended up dying. So, it might be seen or interpreted as, well, I can keep persisting for 58 hours or 58 years and then still end up unsuccessful or whatever that might be. But the whole point is your simple belief system, the simple thought that as long as I keep doing this, there's gonna be something at the end of it rewarding me, gave the strength, the power, the unlock of that energy that allowed those rats to keep going. Now, the only difference in real life is you have to make sure that there is actually a payoff, that you do end up getting a reward, whether that's higher income, a more successful business, a more successful relationship, a more successful physical body. And the way to do that is to simply add reference points and feedback loops. Okay, so reference points being, if I keep doing this, who else have I seen out there that's done something similar and gotten results that I wanted, right? So that's reference points, and that could be reading books, it could be engaging in a community, in a social circle, a network, engaging with a coach, engaging with a mentor, engaging with an advisor, right? Any one of those things, they add reference points. Watching YouTube videos, those are reference points to tell you, okay, I'm heading in the right direction, or I'm going off astray. And then the other thing that I said was feedback loops. And feedback loops is all about having clear metrics, data points that go, I tried this, what data did I get back? Is it edging me closer to perfection or edging me further away from the desired outcome, right? And so that's feedback loops. And feedback loops, you can design them yourself, but the thing is, you don't know what you don't know. You can't perceive what you can't perceive, right? If I tell you right now, look in your, outside of this video, look around your room, see what's brown inside your room, right? And find all the things that are brown colored. And then close your eyes for about 20 seconds. And then now try to tell me, what do you see, or what do you remember seeing that was red? Or what do you see that was green? Now, because you weren't looking for red or green or blue objects, whatever the other color is, right? You can only think of the brown things, you can't see the blue or green or red. Now, that's perspective. And when we're talking about feedback loops, in business especially, or in really anything, but in this context, I'm talking about business, right? You can't see what you can't see. And so having a team around you of specialists that have different perspectives, or having somebody who's got the results you want that can see things further than you can, just, nope, that looks good, that part needs to go away, blah, 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 right? Having that extra feedback will accelerate your results. And that's really the only extra step. But what I found interesting about this Kurt Richter experiment, the one that involved killing a lot of rats, is simply the power of the mind to impact how strong you perform and how long you can endure pain, challenge, struggle in the pursuit of something better, in the pursuit of an outcome, a result, a success, right? And then just adding those extra 2 points, references and feedback loops, will actually get you to the success you're looking for. So I hope that was an interesting story, and I hope it was enjoyable to listen to. I found it really interesting, and yeah, I'll just keep posting things like this for future videos. See you next time.